Calls for expansion of probe into contract for sales scandal as it alleges conspiracy to shield senior government officials they accuse of fraudulently awarding contracts to firm owned by suspended PPA boss.
All ministers and state actors who in one way or the other initiated, participated in the award of contracts to TDL must be suspended forthwith to the immediate dissolution of the PPA board.
We'll hear from the Auditor General, who is already investigating how these alleged shady contracts were awarded.
This is Top Story with Evans Mensah.
Top Story is always brought to you by Bond Savings and Loans. Your success, our passion, Gasem, cement the nation builder. Vodafone, the future is exciting, ready. The National Democratic Congress is tonight calling for an expansion of the probe into the contract for sales scandal. They allege a grand conspiracy to shield senior government officials who they accuse of fraudulently awarding state contracts to the company owned by the suspended boss of the Public Procurement Authority. The company was in the business of winning government contracts and then selling them off to the highest bidder. The NDC, at a news conference a while ago, demanded the immediate suspension of heads of state agencies, including some ministers whose ministries awarded contracts to the firm, which is currently a subject of a criminal probe by the Special Prosecutor. Samijan Fizi, Communications Officer of the NDC.
Also, we wish to ask why the ministers and the relevant officers in charge of procurement in the Ministries of Works and Housing, Roads and Highways, Education, Special Development Initiative, the heads of Cocoa Board, Ghana Water Company Limited, the Bank of Ghana, etc., are still at post. Why are the ministers and the relevant officers in charge of procurement in these institutions still at post? Because we know that the procurement processes leading to the award of these 14 contracts to TDL emanated from these institutions and were actually awarded by these state institutions. We also do know that TDL illegally sold these contracts to other companies with acquiescence and in some cases the approval of these state institutions. The NDC therefore holds the view that all ministers and state actors who in one way or the other initiated, facilitated, or participated in the award of contracts to TDL and the subsequent sale of those contracts to other companies must be suspended forthwith. The scope of investigations into this scandal must be expanded to include all these complicit MDAs and state agencies. Ladies and gentlemen, it is only then that we can stand a chance of unraveling the full extent of this stinky corruption scandal.
Well, the party is also backing civil society calls for the board of the PPA itself to be dissolved in the wake of the scandal as investigations continue.
NDC is irked by the funny and punny knee-jerk reactions taken by President Akufo-Addo since this PPA scandal broke. The president has resorted to his usual face-saving gimmicks by suspending the chief executive officer of the PPA pending investigations by the special prosecutor and SRAJ into the matter. But it is the view of the NDC that the suspension of Mr. ABAJ to all intents and purposes is not deterrent enough. We think that the damning acts of corruption which Mr. ABAJ is captured in the Donkomi documentary as engaging in, including his own admissions and confessions, should have at worst been met with an outright dismissal for other actions to follow. We believe, furthermore, that we ask why the governing board of the PPA, an accomplice in this grand collusion, is still in place. It is important to state that the suspension of the CEO of the PPA, Mr. ABAJ, is totally useless and meaningless until it is linked to the immediate dissolution of the PPA board. We say so because it was the PPA board which, despite knowing that Mr. ABAJ is a shareholder of TDL, went ahead to approve the award of as many as 14 contracts to the company under restricted tender.
And that there is the NDC's communications officer, Sami Jemfi. The party also tonight expressed its lack of confidence in the ability of the state agencies to get to the bottom of this in a neutral and objective manner. They raised questions about the record as far as this government is concerned in getting to the bottom of some of these allegations. Even they raised questions also about the special prosecutor and concerns that he himself has raised about previous state intervention and interference in his work, using that as the basis to question if the processes that the president has triggered, as in reporting the matter both to the special prosecutor and to Shraj, are enough.
President Akufo-Addo's non-commitment to the fight against corruption should not stop the NDC as the largest opposition party from doing our work. We've made our calls. But that doesn't stop us from saying, what we have said, that given how similar matters have been handled by the president in the very recent past. Here we are talking about the suspension of the former deputy sports minister Pius Hajide, the criminal complaint he filed against his own friend, and bedfellow Kwesi Nyantechi when the number 12 Jose was released by his investigative journalist Anazari Miyawanas and so on, amounted to nothing. There were suspensions pending clearance other than suspension pending credible investigations. That is what has been the stock in trade of President Akufo-Addo. He has perfected the act of being a clearing agent of corruption in his government. He endorses corruption. He always come out to mount robust defenses for errant appointees of his who come up in various corruption scandals. Is being lost. So we are saying that we will not be surprised if the clearing agent, President Akufo-Addo, does it again. It is for him to prove us wrong. We are saying that we will also not be surprised if he disregards the findings of Shraj, because he has done it before. In the matter of his own cousin and finance minister, Ken Ofori-Atta, when adverse findings were made by that constitutional body, serious adverse findings, he disregarded them and rather directed his attorney general, who is paid by the taxpayer, to go to court and overturn the findings of Shraj. You understand? So we have justifiable reasons for saying that we do not trust that he will deal decisively with this matter. But it is for him to prove us wrong. We are saying that for once, he should show that he has some remaining commitments in him.
On the line with me is Adam Senanu. He's the co-chair of the Citizen Movement Against Corruption. Mr. Senanu, thank you for your time here on Top Story.
Thank you, too.
Is there justification to call for an expansion of the probe into these agencies and ministries that awarded contracts to this particular agency? We now know was partly owned by the PPA, former PPA boss, who's now being suspended.
Well, there does appear to be justification. I mean, that question has been on our minds about how was it possible that this company with very little experience could have gotten this without these agencies who have done work, they are specialized areas, and they ought to know who is in the business, in the sector, who has experience, who has the capacity. And if somebody wins a contract and it's not that particular entity that's executing, all of it suggests that something has gone wrong. So there is justification for talking about an expanded scope, except to say also that you would notice that when Mr. Joseph Whittle, Commissioner Joseph Whittle of Traj spoke, he said they were not going to limit themselves to what the president had indicated to them, that anything that comes up as they begin the investigation would be material, would be issues worth digging into. So they were going to do that as well. And it hasn't also stopped the Auditor General, Daniel Domelevo, from saying that we're going to pick up these documents and also investigate to find out what kind of documents were submitted, what kind of expertise and experience was provided, to the extent that those doing the due diligence, did they see anything? What did they see before they selected this company? So, yes, I think that it is relevant based on the information we have.
You talk about the Auditor General. In fact, this was his position on the investigations, and he, I think, was the first to raise the concerns about the other, I guess, possible accomplices in this. I think the ministries and agencies who he suspects may have been at fault themselves by awarding the contract. This is his position on this, as expressed to me a while ago in an interview. I wanted to listen to it and see if that addresses the concern that the NDC is raising.
That you brought that firm to be shortlisted. If it doesn't have the requirement, why do we shortlist it?
And eventually even give him the contract.
Exactly. Yeah. Not only shortlist it, at the end, even won
the contract.
So it doesn't mean it was okay. I've been thinking through up to now. I've not yet gone there, but we will get there to see what bidding documents were submitted, what evaluation and reviews took place before the decisions were taken. Unless somebody tells me that no, they just signed a contract for them. There was no process. Because how are you going to convince the people that you have a firm which has done, normally you show the type of jobs you have done in the past. I've constructed these kilometers here, this building here, this, that, here. Those competences, how did they get it? Because they are barely 1 year old and they've never done one before.
Interesting point. Do you then agree with those I've heard on the back of the revelation who say maybe we are over-focusing on the PPA to the neglect of the big individuals who may be behind this company, who are actually influencing the process where they get the contract in spite of their not being qualified to get it in the first place? Are we focusing this right so that we don't miss anything?
I think people are focusing there because of the surprise that it is a procurement agency which is involved. But my audit is not focusing on one area. My audit is sweeping all of them. We are bringing everybody onto the table to answer questions.
On this particular matter?
No, I'm saying I'm doing procurement audit. I cannot tell you what I'm doing. And in my procurement audit, I ask questions from both the agency.
So you're looking at the entire chain.
The whole chain. You want to understand.
Adam, so that's the Auditor General there and what he's seeking to do. Will that be enough?
Well, I would say that, I would think that combining what he's saying plus the fact that Traj has also indicated that they will not limit themselves should provide sufficient information to deal with what the NDC is highlighting. I think between those two institutions, one from the procurement bit, one from the legal aspect of the law and conflict of interest, looking at Article 284 and what is represented in the PPA Act, I think that between the two of them, we should have all the necessary clues and tips to identify persons and other institutions and entities that may have influenced this in a way or facilitated this scandal. So, yes, we cannot take the point away from the NDC when they say that there has to be an expanded scope. But I think that it appears that that scope is already being taken into consideration by some of the institutions of state that have spoken to the issue.
But their point is, these institutions like the Auditor General and Traj says the scope, the petition that came to them from the presidency did not include that, but they themselves want to go there. Their point is, because these other agencies and ministries are headed by political appointees appointed by the president should have taken that initiative himself if he indeed is committed to getting to the bottom of this and dealing decisively with whoever is implicated. Do you get their point?
Well, I think that's a dicey issue. You know, when this case first came up, I myself, I was also very struck by the personality and the entity and like, how could this happen to her? What an embarrassment. And it took a while before I started asking questions. But what documents did they submit? How come these other agencies didn't start raising red flags? You know, so the assumption that the presidency will always get everything right, I think probably is flawed. They probably did what they thought was needed at the time, and frankly, if the presidency is so minded and wants to expand the scope so be it. But I don't think it is injurious to the findings that will be made by Charge and the Auditor General and the SPO, because they've already indicated that they're going to expand the scope. What is necessary is when those findings are made, what actions are taken by the presidency. I think that is what we should all be looking out for.
And they do you have the same doubts, such as the NDC? They say because of the past record, and they mentioned some examples in the past, like Pius Ajide, who of course report went to the CID to investigate. He was cleared. They keep on referring to these incidents and say they don't trust that if it comes to the president to take decisive action on the back of the investigations, they don't believe that they will get real decisive action there.
Truth of the matter is, yes. If you look at the facts of the historical evidence, so far it has not been comforting or assuring the way the presidency has dealt with some of these issues. That's fact. However, I mean, none of us could have predicted that the president was going to, as it were, assign this case to the SPO and Charge in this instance. And so, I mean, there are always points of change. Things can happen that one didn't anticipate. And I think that the jury is out. I mean, we cannot say for a fact, and we cannot, as it were, project or prophesy on what is going to transpire in the next few weeks. I think that the president has, in this instance, done the right thing by referring it to other independent institutions of state with the kind of leadership that we know would definitely dig deep and give us, as Ghanaians, what has transpired. I think that we should be looking out to see how the president is going to report to act on this. And, I mean, we are entering a political season very soon. It's either to their benefit or injurious to their political campaign if they do the right thing or if they choose to do the wrong thing.
Adam Sedano, thank you for time here on Top Story. Another story we are following for you tonight is the mouth-watering, unprecedented $5 billion investment to build 200,000 housing units here in the country to help address a housing shortfall. This was launched today. A sword was cut by the Vice President today for this very ambitious project led by the UN Office for Project Services. In fact, today, the Under-Secretary General and Executive Director of the UN Office for Project Service, Greta Ferremo, provided details of the project during the launch here in Accra.
This particular project will, of course, need partners who have a strong intent of doing projects together, and housing was a key priority in both countries. And we started from that and have developed something that has become solid projects.
So we are looking at some 200,000 homes?
Yeah.
Just here in Ghana, 200,000 homes.
Yeah.
In its entirety, we know the project is spanning from Africa to Asia, Kenya, and then India. How many homes are we looking at in total?
So 850,000 affordable homes across India, Pakistan, Ghana, Kenya, as well as the Caribbean islands and India. So it's a high number, but it's also scale that offers the opportunity to build affordable homes for many.
You describe it as affordable. We would say affordability is relative. Here I'm looking at $27,500 United States dollars as the price start. Is that the case?
Yeah, it is, but it's also linked to a mortgage scheme. And if I look at when I bought my first home, it was actually through the partnership I was able to build with the bank. So I did not own the home until after 20 years. And this is what the mortgage scheme implies, that there will be an opportunity to pay the house over a long period of time. And it will then be affordable for many people. And as we say, this program is built for low and middle income families. Exactly.
Let's look at the period of this whole project. We understand it's going to take not less than 8 years to complete.
So the time frame is 10 years. I think you understand when we start from scratch, it is about land, it's about design of the infrastructure, is about providing the financing. It's also to build, as I said, the mortgage schemes and everything. It will take some time, but we move ahead, and today we have kicked off what is supposed to be 6,500 homes in this plot of land.
Well, as you can imagine, the government is cashing in on this already. The Vice President, Dr. Mahmoud Bawumia, was on hand to cut the sword and indicated that the construction of the homes, and this is $5 billion investment, signify government's commitment to reducing what he calls a staggering housing deficit.
This UNOPS initiative, which we are launching today, sets out to construct 100,000 affordable housing units nationally over the next 10 years. The project will construct 3 factories in Ghana for the production of building material, building panels, and I've been informed that the first factory is being established in Tema. It is estimated that this will create many jobs, over 100,000 jobs in this regard, directly and indirectly related to industries from construction to procurement, supply services, finance, and the real estate industry as a whole. Government has fully embraced this project and would hope the same level of enthusiasm is demonstrated by the private sector in supporting this developmental agenda. I am assured that the project will rely heavily on local contractors, resources, and labor. We look forward to the benefits of this project and the benefits this project will bring to the good people of Ghana. The project's objective is in tandem with the government's policy of providing adequate, decent, and affordable housing that is accessible and sustainable, with infrastructural facilities to satisfy the needs of our illustrious Ghanaians. The uniqueness of this project is the fact that the government of Ghana is supporting the Ministry of Works and Housing with UN funding, which has been secured to provide all ancillary facilities. Funding for this project is solely provided by UN Ops, with government playing a facilitating role. Program arrangement does not impose any financial liability on the government of Ghana and requires no government guarantees. And this is why I really agree with Great Faremo, UN Under Secretary General, that this is going to be a game changer. We are going to have over 5 billion for 100,000 homes.
Well, the Deputy Housing Minister, Barbara Isi Asha, says they are waiting for the Attorney General's advice on what actions to take on housing projects started by the previous administration. Remember, this is going to happen when a lot more across the country, affordable housing projects started way back from the Kufuor era, had not been completed. There's one very controversial one, the Saglame housing project, which is still currently, at various stages of completion, but it hasn't been completed yet, isn't yet to be inhabited. She says they're still waiting for Attorney General's advice before they can proceed on those other projects.
And we're going to make sure that it goes to the ordinary person. You see, sometimes if a government initiates a policy like that, and at the point the government is not able to roll out, that is why we have Senate coming in, and sometimes it shoots up. And then something that should be affordable turns out not to be affordable.
And it's good the United Nations is taking up this project. But what happens to what we started locally in Ghana? I'm talking about what your predecessor started, the Saglame Housing Project. What are we doing about that?
Whilst we are rolling out the government's policy of affordable housing, of course, per our constitution, when the previous government starts, a contract or a program or a project, yes, we do know they have to probably throw it somewhere. You need to continue. So it is, we know that as a government, we need to continue some of these projects. It started with President Kufuor. President Kufuor, we had some of these projects in the northern part of Ghana. We have some in Koforidua. We have some in Asokori, Mampong, and then Pani. These are all projects that the President Kufuor started. We thought that per the constitution, the previous government was going to continue. So we have taken it upon ourselves to make sure that we work on all these, to complete all these abandoned projects.
What practical steps have been taken, particularly with exactly?
I know there's an issue. I know it was sent to the AG's office, And there were a whole lot of issues. The monies that were paid for the number of housing units, at the end of the day, we didn't get that amount. I think it's about 4,000 or 5,000. At the end of the day, we saw about just 1,500. So that whole issue is with the AG. And I think that in no time, we're going to probably be briefed, or we're going to be well informed as to what actions the ministry or the AG has to take.
Let's break this down a bit more. The Deputy Minister just joined us on the telephone line. Madam Isi, thank you for your time here on Top Story.
My pleasure, please.
Kindly explain to me, I've heard the Vice President say government is facilitating the process. In real terms, what does that mean? Are we providing land for this?
Okay, thank you very much for the opportunity. I'm Barbara Ashaisi. I'm Member of Parliament for Kikusi North, and also double up as a Deputy Minister of Works and Housing. Today is a very good day for us as a ministry, because we are very much poised to reduce the high housing deficit in this country. And it is sad to know that in Ghana, we have a housing deficit of close to about 2 billion. So this program is a partnership between the Ministry of Works and Housing and then the United Nations Office for Projects, that is UNOPS. And the good news is that with this project, we do not need any guarantee. And so today, the program was officially launched, and we're going to start in no time.
Yeah.
We are looking at 100,000 in a space of 5 years, my dear.
Yeah, and I had the details announced today. I'm just trying to get to the heart of our government's own contribution to this. The Vice President says government's contribution is to facilitate the process. He says there's not going to be a financial commitment, but what does it mean to facilitate the process?
To facilitate the project, it means that it's a partnership, you see. And looking at the national housing policy, one of the objectives is to partner with the private sector. So the government is partnering, and the good news is also that we have the land available, and the chiefs, the Ministry of Housing, we are all coming together to making sure that from now to next year we roll out about 6,500 housing units.
So we are providing land for this project.
Sorry?
We are providing land for this project.
Absolutely, and no guarantee. So the work can commence. Usually, before you commence such projects, if it's private, it's a contractor that presents a proposal, you would probably have to wait for the Ministry of Finance to grant you a guarantee. Sometimes it delays. Sometimes you want to start work and you don't have a bank guarantee and you don't know what to do. So to facilitate the whole process, the UN is not asking for any bank guarantee at all. And we're all together in this to ensuring that we also step in to making sure that whatever they need to ensure that they do not have challenges, we also come in, my dear.
So I understand the 2-bedroom house, when it's completed, will cost $27,500. Some say that is hard to describe that as affordable.
Yeah, we are looking at the mortgage, you see, because we know that for an ordinary Ghanaian to have that amount upfront sometimes it's difficult. Assuming I take an amount of about 2,000 Ghana cedis and I have to pay that amount, it becomes difficult. That is why the government is, providing that mortgage system. The mortgage system makes it easier. So you have about 30 good years to pay. And when you pay, you own the property. So assuming you're taking about 2,000 and you need to commit about 400 Ghana cedis or 500 Ghana cedis, it becomes easier. So the mortgage system is also a way of, facilitating the whole process to make it quite affordable for the ordinary Ghanaian.
I'm grateful that you joined us. Barbara Isi, she is a Deputy Works and Housing Minister there. Want to join us on Newsnight for more on this. Also, we'll bring you the Vice President's latest attacks on John Dramani Mahama over his latest comments on the banking crisis. We're hearing from the Vice President, who says the former President's pronouncement on the banking crisis displays his ignorance and limited knowledge about the matter. You want to stay with us for that and more here on News Night, which starts right now.